Weapons in Red Dead Online are an absolute essential part of your outlaw loadout, and choosing the right weapons for you may take some experimentation while you test out certain playstyles and different missions to see what you feel most comfortable using. And while everyone's preferences are different from one another, there are some weapons that shine through that and are objectively better choices to use than other weapons and when compared to them. That being said, if there is a best, there always has to be a worst, and today on the show we will be talking about the worst weapon in Red Dead Online. We'll be taking an in-depth look at the stats of this weapon, like damage output, damage range, reload speed, bloom size, bloom shrink speed, fire rate, condition traits, and more, and basically anything that you would want to know about any weapon you're thinking of purchasing or using in-game. So let's get into it. If you enjoyed this video at any point, or if you just find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it, and if you want to stay up to date and in the loop with everything Red Dead Redemption 2 and Red Dead Online, consider hitting that subscribe button with your bell notifications turned on. So the worst weapon in Red Dead Online, statistically speaking here, is the elephant rifle. Some of you already probably guessed it, but let's take a look at why, according to the stats of the elephant rifle, why it's actually the worst choice of weapon to use in game, because it's not all bad, but most of it is. For starters, before we even dive into any stats, this awful thing happens to your character when you fire this weapon while crouched. Your character gets knocked backwards and falls over, needing to take valuable time to stand back up and aim to fire their rifle again. This is a realistic and intentional decision by Rockstar because most people would struggle firing this weapon while in an unstable position like crouching, for example, with a weapon that's super front heavy like this. So already you can take one position of your character off the table, leading you to be forced to stand and make yourself a larger target for incoming fire. Next is the accuracy and bloom size. When aiming the weapon, you see the circle that appears around the dot in the middle, and that is your reticle, and the bullet that you fire could go anywhere in that circle of bloom, no matter its size. Now for most weapons, that reticle closes in far enough and fast enough, they don't really need to worry too much about it, and you'll usually hit your shots without any problems. However, with the elephant rifle we're talking about here, we're working with an entirely different beast. No matter what your screen resolution is, or what size of TV or monitor or computer screen you play on, the elephant rifle's bloom circle will always measure up to a whopping 7.12% of your screen while initially aiming, and if you stand still, it will eventually decrease to 0.57% of your screen size, making your shot pretty accurate, even without painted black. But that will take almost 1 full second to get there, and that's if you're absolutely stationary and not moving at all. If you are moving, expect the bloom size to still account for 3.42% of your screen, and after firing a shot from the elephant rifle, your bloom size will shoot up to 7.42%, more than any other weapon in the game, and that will take 1.8 seconds to focus back into that 0.57% value. The higher percentage of the bloom size we're talking about here is bad for weapons, and most weapons in the game fall into a bloom size that account for less than 3% of your screen space, even for most shotguns as well. So that gives you perspective on how inaccurate this weapon is, and hopefully that does give you perspective on how frequently you will be missing shots unless you wait the full amount of time for your aim to steady back up and that bloom circle to shrink. This is something that isn't too detrimental to a weapon's performance, but it is a massive hindrance to performance of the elephant rifle, and that's my second major reason why I advise against purchasing or ever using this weapon for serious combat. Now let's take a look at raw damage stats just to show why this weapon can also mislead players into thinking that it's a lot better than it actually is. Raw damage is pretty high. The elephant rifle deals 112.6 damage according to the game files and various player tests, and the only weapons more powerful than this would be the rolling block rifle as well as shotguns at the ultra close ranges because they deal more than 120 damage and can achieve the easy one-shot kills at those close ranges. But for the elephant rifle, its range stats are quite odd and they function differently than any other weapon would perform over various distances. Most gunfights with either enemies or players are going to be within the 50-step range, or about 100 feet, and from point blank range to that 50-step range, the elephant rifle will consistently deal 112.6 damage per shot fired. However, past that range and any range further, most weapons will start to taper off with their damage output, and that will only decrease as you get into those longer and longer ranges. But for the elephant rifle, you'll deal 0 damage past the 50 steps. You also do not get any auto aim lock on if you have those settings applied, and painted black will also not paint an X over the enemy or player you're aiming at either, whereas other weapons which may do lower damage at those longer ranges can either still lock on or paint an X with painted black. So while damage output with the elephant rifle is high, the range already makes it a bad weapon for its purpose, and when discussing other stats like fire rate, reload speed, and more, you'll see why this weapon really makes no sense to use at all when you have repeaters, other rifles, snipers, and shotguns that get the job done much better and much more efficiently than the elephant rifle for any specific gameplay scenario. When looking at raw DPS, we get decent results, only for it to get completely obliterated by poor fire rate and reload speeds. The elephant rifle has a DPS value of 95, which is higher than most weapons, but with only 2 rounds to fire before a reload time of 1.8 seconds, and keep in mind it will also take 1.2 seconds to fire off both shots, you're really looking at a DPS of only 55 in real combat scenarios. This means that every other weapon in the game has a higher sustained DPS than the elephant rifle, and that's one we want to focus on when we factor in variables into our calculations. Burst DPS is important, but that only accounts for damage per shot over time without the reloads and the time it takes to actually reload factored in. Now, what about legendary animals? Because you could argue that this weapon is more focused on taking down big predators over players and other human enemies. Well, this weapon still underperforms because the damage values are going to be the same. Every animal doesn't have 128 health in this game, but the fact remains that all these stats, like fire rate, the reload speed, the accuracy, all would help you either miss shots against an animal that you're targeting, or you're slower on the reload, or the fire rate here and the animal's gonna get within range and attack and kill you as a player, or whatever the case is. And most of the time, shotguns are still gonna kill those legendary animals much faster than it's gonna take you to pump in 4, 6, 8, or even 10 elephant rifle shots into some of these legendary animals here in game. So with all that said, that's every single reason why I would advise against purchasing this weapon. It's really more of a novelty item here in game. If you have a ton of money to spend, well, then this weapon is of course there for you to try out. I hardly ever use it unless I'm so bored out of my mind with this game that I want to try something different, and that doesn't really bother me. But overall, it's impractical for combat because it has low ammo reserves, the elephant rifle has poor accuracy, the elephant rifle has a poor fire rate, and the elephant rifle also has a poor reload speed. But what do you think of this weapon? Have you tried it out? Do you agree or disagree with my reasons for and against using it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section down below. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video today, and if you did, hopefully I earned your like on it. And of course, if you are new to my channel and you want to stay up to date with all the best Red Dead Online and Rockstar Games content, consider hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss out on a single thing we post here on the channel. We consistently talk about updates, news, information, tips, tricks, and even leaks, and we'll keep you guys updated here on the channel daily, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you want to follow me over on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected with me outside of YouTube, and you're more than welcome to ask me questions on those platforms. You can follow me at HazardousHDTV, and all of my social media links can be found in the description down below. That being said, thank you all so much for watching, everyone. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you guys in the next Red Dead Online video. Adios, amigos.